Testing, 1, 2. Okay. If we could just have a seat, we'll begin the program today. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Students, families, guests, employees of Milwaukee Tool. This is the 4th year of our Innovation Challenge with you, and I can't thank you enough for the time, the energy, the support that you give us. Just to kind of level set, I thought it'd be good to just talk a little bit about Launch, what it is, so that many of you might have some experience with it. The School District of Elmbrook and the Wauwatosa School District are collaborating on bringing students together to show them where their interests and passions could align to the world of work after high school. And we depend on employees to curate needs, projects, things that they have, problems worth solving, to help us craft our curriculum so that it's relevant, timely, and authentic for our students. We're combating senioritis. We're trying to give kids a reason to come to school every day, something out of the traditional classroom. So with that, I'd like to thank our school principals, both from Wauwatosa East, Wauwatosa West, Brookfield Central, Brookfield East, because what you'll see today is not just a product of our program. It's a product of the outstanding education that goes on in both of those school districts. We get to reap the rewards because we have interested employees that will inspire our students, as well as challenges like this that we have about 20 teachers in our program that relentlessly pursue trying to change what education looks like. So I just need to make sure that you understand what Launch is all about. I thank you for your time. What you'll see today, we had 28 projects, 28 employees from Milwaukee Tool give their time. We've narrowed that down through a preliminary competition to our top 10. And so you'll see today students from business, engineering, IT, manufacturing, bring forward something that is very, very important to them. I ask the audience to be kind and generous to them, because for many of them, this may be their first moment in an event like this. So I just ask for kindness and compassion to the students that are coming forward. With that, I'd like to bring up Andy and Dan from Milwaukee Tool.
Thank you. For those that don't know me, I'm Andy Lambert. I'm a director of product at Milwaukee Tool, but also our community impact education team leader. And this is my 3rd year with Launch. So this is probably, for me, this is extremely fun, seeing what you guys have worked on the last 9 weeks. One thing I'll say is, Milwaukee Tool's story is one for the history books. From our early beginnings in 1924 in a small shop in downtown Milwaukee, to how the organization supported World War II. But I think what's most interesting for us is really the last 13 years. If you go back, to 2007, 2008, we were a small $250 million company in a building off of Lisbon Road in Brookfield with a collapsing roof. But where you see us have gone from there is, today we're a $9 billion company, knocking on the door of $30 billion in the near future. So it's interesting because the future of Milwaukee Tool is here in this room. One of the things I hope you've all picked up throughout this process is our culture. We're an organization that seeks challenges. So we never settle. We're looking to always improve. That's part of our culture. We're candid with one another. We work as one team to bring solutions to our end users and continue to grow the company. You'll see that in the last 13 years, 20% growth year over year. The fact that we're investing in our communities, through Brookfield with the new facilities that we have there. Even more Brookfield development, I think, across the street. Menominee Falls. I work out of our new downtown Milwaukee office, which is amazing, and I think in the future we can host these challenges there. You'll love the facility. Even down south into downtown Chicago. But like I said, our future growth depends on the next generations that want to seek challenges, that want to continuously improve, and bring solutions, to people throughout the world. So I'm excited to see all of the challenges and how you've come together with solutions and presentations here in the top 10/11, Megan? She's nodding, yeah, 11. So good luck and thank you all, and I just want to pass it over to Dan for a few words.
Well, thank you, everyone. I've been involved with Launch for about 6 years, ever since moving to Wisconsin. It's always a pleasure to see what you guys come up with. It is, amazing talent that all of the next generation is coming through. I think my piece of advice to all the teams here is, the hard part's done. So come here, have fun, present, and go get them. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jordan. Thank you so much for being here today. I'd like to start off with asking everyone a question. Does anyone here have solar panels installed on their house? I didn't expect so. Well, I would like to ask everyone here if anyone started driving down the road and ever seen solar panels up on houses or company buildings and ever wonder how much it might cost to get those installed, or is it really beneficial to have solar panel energy instead of regular energy? My goal is to answer those questions for you today in this presentation. As I stated before, my name is Jordan Miller. I was a project manager during this group. My goal is to keep everyone organized, keep everyone in task, make sure the problem statement was organized, and making sure everyone understood what they were supposed to be doing.
Hi, I'm Kiera Moore. I was a meeting facilitator, so my job was to create the meeting agendas before every meeting so that we knew what we'd be discussing, and then also to take notes during our meetings so we wouldn't forget anything that we talked about.
I'm Michael Ogabatum, and my role was a communication specialist, and I primarily focused on talking with my coach and doing some slight research.
And I'm Danny Herbst, and I was the research specialist, so I did a lot of the research and I obtained most of the raw data for the group.
So before we started this project, our goal from our coach was to come up with our own problem statement instead of just having a given problem statement to us. Our original problem statement was a little too easy, and he challenged us a little bit for us to come up with something that we knew we could do with our talent and our skills. So after another significant talk with our group, we came up with a problem statement being a research-based project that comes up with a high-level equation to calculate the cost of solar panel installation on Milwaukee Tool HQ building. The goal is to come up with an easy way that they could use it to get the installation cost and also use it for other companies in case they want to know.
So before we jumped into our project, the first thing we had to do was some research, and we decided to research how two major companies use solar energy. And the two companies we decided to look at were Tesla and Apple. And we were able to find out that Tesla uses solar energy to efficiently power their cars without having to be at home. And they do this by using what's known as power walls, which is where you save the solar energy that you have for whenever the sun isn't out. And then we were also able to find out that Apple has currently 25 renewable energy projects that they use solar energy on, and they can generate over 700 megawatts of generation capacity, and then 286 megawatts of solar photovoltaic generation. And this resulted in their facilities having over 54% less greenhouse gas emissions, and we figured that these kind of results would be beneficial for our project.
So during our research, we called two different solar energy companies for an approximate cost of installation. Those two companies were Elevated Solar and Electric and Home Team Energy Company. We also had to find out, due to our research, how big the Milwaukee HQ building was, and that came out to be 159,376 square feet. Also, we had to find out how much it would cost in the state of Wisconsin to power a solar panel, and in the state of Wisconsin, it would cost $3.32 per watt. Finally, we had to find out what type of solar panel would fit best, and the best four we came up with were monocrystalline, polycrystalline, PERC, and thin film solar panels.
So on the screen above is our equation that we made in Google Sheets. In your top left corner, you have where your square footage will be your inputted, and in the middle is where the total cost with any tax credit or rebate options depending on which partner you work with. I'd like to do a quick demo if you don't mind. So today I'm going to be using the square footage of Brookfield Central, which is 322,613 square feet. What you'll do is go to your top left corner where your square footage is, you'll type in your number, and once you do that, you'll see your total cost with the tax credit and rebate options listed under that. So this is a really simple process, quick and easy, and really good to know like how to what your installation cost would be. On the screen above over here is a picture that we got from Elevated Solar Energy, and the picture on the above is this Milwaukee Tool HQ building. The orange spaces is where the solar panels would be installed, and on your right side is how many solar panels it would take to really significantly get energy onto Milwaukee Tool HQ with the gigawatt hours and the kilowatt hours that would come with. Also, during the months, it will change due to how much sun is being provided, so you'd be able to understand when you can use the most energy and when you can't due to sun. So we really like to talk about Milwaukee Tool culture. It was something that during this project we really learned a lot about and how we applied it to our group. The big main 4 points that we talked about was never settle, one team mentality, empowering leaders, and speed and agility. I'd like to start out with never settle. During this project, when we started out coming up with our problem statement, it was a little too easy, but we knew we shouldn't settle on the easiest route, but go with something harder that we knew our group could work better on. A one team mentality, making sure that everyone understood what we're supposed to be doing, but also working well in a group, knowing that if we don't work well in a group, our results won't come successful because we don't know how to work well. Empowering leaders, it helped me personally because I knew how to be a good leader. I can't just go boss around my team, but help make sure that everyone understands the problem and not to just take advantage just because you know what you're doing. And the speed and agility, making sure that we were doing fast with our time, but also coming out with accurate results and not just trying to get the easy way route.
So to kind of wrap things up, we all have learned so much throughout this project, but I think what we learned the most is how to solve real-world problems by taking a business approach. And this was due to our coach treating us like his colleagues and his coworkers, and not just some high school kids that he's helping with the project. And what went well for us throughout this project is that we all had our own niche tasks and assignment that we had to complete, but then when we brought it all together, we created our final project, and we are all really happy with that. And what didn't go well is when sometimes we were contacting the solar panel companies and they either wouldn't respond to us or they wouldn't give us the data or information that we wanted. So that was a struggle. So next time we would like to contact more solar panel companies, especially ones outside of the area, so that we can make our equation more applicable to companies outside of Wisconsin.
So to wrap this all up, I'd really like to thank Ryan Leto of Home Team Energy and Ross Schultz of Elevated Solar Energy for all the time they gave up to help a couple high school kids with some estimates of installation costs. I really appreciate the time that they gave up for us, and the information that they provided us was very helpful. I'd also like to thank our coach, Jason Julius, for dealing with us this whole time, but understanding that he can push us to be what we came during this presentation. He was a really awesome coach, and he really helped us learn a lot. And that's all for today. I would like to know if you guys have any questions or anything. All right, that's it.
Good evening. Sorry, good morning. I'm Nathan Stewart.
I'm Jim Seckers.
I'm Sophia Tshoni.
And I'm Salam Kananga.
And our group was really grateful to work with both Emma Nelson and Milwaukee Tool these past 8 weeks on our project.
So to start off, according to Engineering News, we found that $1 billion in power tools get lost each year. We found this extremely relevant to our project because this is exactly the problem that Milwaukee Tool's One Key is trying to solve.
Now, this statistic kind of leads us into the problem that we were given at the beginning of our project, which was how might Milwaukee Tool provide better insight into where tools and assets are on the job site while remaining ethical and not tracking the actual individuals.
So a few weeks ago, my team and I were actually able to visit a local construction company. We had the pleasure of meeting that company's tool crib logistics manager. And basically for his job, all he has to do is send out tools to several different job sites for construction and ensure that after construction is done, he ensures that the tools are safely returned to his warehouse. So he loves his job, of course, but he had two main problems with his job, that being tools are being stolen too often and tools are being lost too often. One example he provided for us was when a group of thieves actually broke into a construction site and cut open a gang box. If you don't know, a gang box is just a storage unit used to house tools. So these group of thieves cut open the gang box, stole thousands of dollars worth of tools, and were able to flee. Now, under normal circumstances where our friend, the tool crib manager, didn't have Milwaukee Tool's One Key, which is just a tool used to track other tools, he would have lost all of these tools and had to pay thousands of dollars in replacements. However, fortunately for him, he did have Milwaukee Tool's One Key. He was able to track exactly where these tools had went and safely proceed from there. There are a lot of people in our tool crib manager's same position where they are losing thousands of dollars to tools being stolen and tools being lost, and their problem could easily be fixed with a product like Milwaukee Tool's One Key.
Now, I'm sure by now everyone knows what Milwaukee Tool is, but not everyone may be familiar with what Milwaukee Tool One Key is. For those who don't know already, Milwaukee Tool One Key is a product embedded in most Milwaukee Tool assets. With this product, you can easily track the location of the tool and know its whereabouts and location history throughout the day. You can also purchase this product on its own, where it can be attached to products that are not from Milwaukee Tool. So this is the Milwaukee Tool One Key app, and a few features I want to highlight in the app is the in-app communication. In the in-app communication, you will be notified when your item has been found or lost. The next is the location history. In the location history, you can see where your tool has been or where it is throughout the day.
Our project mainly focused on research. We researched three different things. We researched Milwaukee Tool One Key itself, basically focusing on branding, see if there's anything we could change from an outside perspective. And then competitor research, mainly focusing on controversies to see if they have had any controversies in the past and how they solve them. And then we performed some outreach, mainly using surveys, and we performed an interview. Then finally, we performed survey analysis and solution development. The three main competitors that we focused on were Hilti, AirTag, and DeWalt. But AirTag was the most helpful because they've had some recent controversies in the past where they have had some unsavory characters using their product to track people who didn't want to be tracked. Then we used HubSpot's outreach tool to perform surveys and get in contact with people like foremans, power line technicians, and plumbers. And finally, from their surveys, we performed survey analysis, and we were able to identify two problems that these people had with One Key. It was they need more transparency of when they're being tracked and how they're being tracked.
So to solve these two problems that we found through our survey analysis, we came up with two solutions. The first one being a frequently asked questions page, and we decided to do this because when researching the Milwaukee Tool One Key website, we found that they didn't have a frequently asked questions page. We thought this would be extremely helpful to potential buyers to help them gain more knowledge on what Milwaukee Tool One Key is and how does it work. Our second solution is a notification. So we actually took inspiration from Apple AirTag. So basically whenever an AirTag is near your device or connected to your device, it sends a notification to your phone. And we decided to implement this into the Milwaukee Tool One Key app. So basically whenever you enter any sort of job site that you're working on, it gives you a notification through a digital fence, basically stating that you have the potential of being tracked.
So, overall, we anticipate that these solutions will improve brand recognition and consumer confidence in the information, communication, and transparency we have provided for them.
Now, throughout our entire project, we mostly align with the never settling, always improving culture value. This is because we were never directly producing a new product. We were improving upon an already existing product, which was Milwaukee Tool's One Key. We gave two solutions to improve Milwaukee Tool's technology, but also the consumer trust between the consumer and Milwaukee Tool themselves. Thank you all for listening, and thank you Emma Nelson, our coach, and thank you Milwaukee Tool for giving this chance to us.
Before we begin, we'd like to ask that you reload the slides, because we made some mistakes. But also, one of our members is going to go fetch stuff, so please wait for a moment. Artificial intelligence, or AI, has been somewhat of a buzzword in recent years, with applications like ChatGPT revolutionizing what we once thought to be possible for computers to achieve. AI has been heralded as a vehicle to the future.
With a mindset focused on constant improvement and a commitment to speed, agility, and urgency, it's only natural that Milwaukee Tool will want to use recent advancements in AI to improve their products.
Milwaukee Tool is based upon a commitment to its users, with professional concerns being prioritized in the design of every single product.
For years, Milwaukee Tool has delivered relentless safety solutions built for productivity, and that's exactly what we did in this project.
I'm Prateek.
I'm Liam.
I'm Mox.
And I'm Johnny, the project manager, and we worked with our mentor, Dr. Zoltan Pollock, to answer the question, how can Milwaukee Tool improve their products with artificial intelligence?
Using AI, we redesigned 3 different products, those being the chainsaw, nail gun, and pipe inspection tool.
But before we could begin designing, we have to understand how AI could be implemented in these tools. For the first 2 products, we decided to use something called sensor fusion. What sensor fusion is it involves a complex analysis based on multiple sensor inputs. This allows it to accurately predict the situation and react accordingly.
So the first product we decided to work with was the chainsaw. It was a cool November morning. 34-year-old Nathan Taylor was trimming tree branches when suddenly his chainsaw kicked back and slashed across his upper body. He called 911, but was dead by the time paramedics arrived. Causing a reported 36,000 injuries every year, chainsaws are some of the most dangerous power tools on the market. And so we decided to address 2 major concerns related to chainsaw safety. The first of which was kickback, which occurs when the chainsaw hits a solid object or gets caught in a knot of wood and kicks back towards the user. Now, kickback is a common issue with many power tools, and there have been measures designed to combat it. In fact, the Milwaukee Tool chainsaw already comes with a chain brake that's designed to react to kickback. But the thing about this chain brake is that it's manually activated. And since Milwaukee Tool is always improving, we can instead automate the kickback response to make it faster and more consistent using either an accelerometer to detect sudden movements or a current sensor to detect spikes in current when the saw gets stuck. The second issue we addressed was the issue of chain tension, more specifically a loose chain. And although this may seem like just a minor inconvenience, a loose chain is actually a significant safety hazard because in the case of kickback, the chain could fly off the guide bar and embed itself in your body. But that brings the question of how can we even detect chain tension? Well, a recent study found a correlation between acoustic emissions, which are essentially vibrations, and tension. And these emissions could be picked up using either an acoustic emission sensor or the same accelerometer as earlier, and an indicator LED would light up to show when the chain is loose. Now, as for the AI implementation, we could use the previously mentioned sensor fusion to combine data from the accelerometer, current sensor, and acoustic emission sensor to determine whether we have kickback or a loose chain. And some specific algorithms that would be helpful for this purpose include logistic regression, which can probabilistically determine whether a given event has occurred, as well as the naive Bayes algorithm, which can directly classify an outcome based on several independent variables. To conclude, here's a diagram that summarizes the operation of the chainsaw. Data is constantly collected from all the sensors, which is then fed into the AI algorithm, which finally determines what event has occurred and will react accordingly.
While Johnny's chainsaws avoid people from cutting themselves in half, Liam and I are going to prevent them shooting themselves with a nail gun. Let's take a look at the case of Derek Hinckley. While Mr. Hinckley was using his nail gun, he accidentally put his finger on the trigger and brushed the nail gun against his thigh, launching a 3-inch barb nail into his leg. Fortunately, Mr. Hinckley was fine, but with over 37,000 nail gun injuries occurring in the US alone, others may not be so lucky.
Most injuries were caused by accidentally brushing the tool against the body, like Mr. Hinckley, dropping the tool, and double fires. In order to protect against these injuries, Milwaukee Tool has implemented some features such as a no-nail, no-release feature, requiring both the contact tip and the trigger to be pressed for the gun to fire.
Although these safety measures may exist, these may not be enough to prevent all future injuries. So we proposed 2 AI-based solutions to Milwaukee Tools. First of which is an accelerometer-based solution. The accelerometer-based solution gathers acceleration data, which is inputted into an AI algorithm to predict whether the user using the nail gun or the nail gun has fallen, and send a signal to the transistor, disrupting the flow of electricity to the trigger, thus preventing any potential misfires. We also went beyond the deliverables to create a proof of concept. This involves an LCD connected to an accelerometer, and we put this data into an AI algorithm, which gave us accuracy results within 89%.
The second solution addresses the 2 other reasons for injury. This solution includes a thermal sensor that can detect heat signatures. An AI will be used to differentiate between the emission from a person and their surroundings to determine whether or not a nail gun is in front of their body or not. Like the other solution, we'll use a transistor to stop the flow of electricity to the trigger.
To quickly summarize, the two sensors gather inputs and it is fed into the AI algorithm, which predicts if it's a risk to the user, and if so, it'll send a signal to the transistor telling it to stop the flow of electricity to the trigger, thus preventing any misfires.
Whereas our first 2 product solutions dealt with user safety, our final product solution deals with productivity. Picture this, your sink is clogged and you don't know why. In the past, you might have had to tear your pipes apart searching for an answer. Now we could use tools like Milwaukee Tool's pipeline inspection cameras to take a look inside. Today, a pipeline inspection typically involves a long reinforced wire with the screen attached to one end and a camera attached to the other end. The camera is inserted into a pipe, allowing workers to search for weaknesses from the inside.
Our problem was it was hard to identify weaknesses by just looking at the camera feed itself. This means faults like cracks and blockages could go undetected. In order to make the workers' lives easier, we decided to implement an AI algorithm. This AI algorithm is called image segmentation. Image segmentation takes pixels from a digital image and groups them together, essentially making object recognition possible. We can implement this into our solution by highlighting faults in a pipeline and displaying them on screen, as you can see here. First, you take raw data from the camera, then you import it to the image segmentation algorithm, and based on certain conditions, it will show up as a square on the UI with the name of the issue. In short, this will save the workers time and money.
These AI-based solutions will be a game changer in the industry, propelling Milwaukee Tools further ahead of its competitors. But we also must acknowledge that millions of other possibilities remain to be explored.
Our world is advancing quickly, and moving forward, it's clear that Milwaukee Tool must always improve as they continue to implement AI solutions to uphold their values of speed, agility, and urgency. And if they do, who knows what could lie in the future.
Thank you for your time.
Am I good? Alright. Good? Alright, hi everyone, and welcome to our... Oh, okay, my bad. Hey, thumbs up.
I will. That was like an encouraging thumbs up. Not a ready thumbs up. Not a ready.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our Milwaukee Tool presentation in which we worked with the heated apparel line. My name is Caleb Ludwig, and these are my teammates, Scott Anderson, Joe Butterfield, and Miles White.
So first we started off with taking a look at our problem statement, which was to create a prototype revolving around Milwaukee Tool apparel while sticking with their iconic heated gear.
So that takes us to our first meeting. After we got the formalities and introductions out of the way, we were really ready to dig into the problem at hand. But before we did that, we needed to gain a deeper understanding of Milwaukee Tool's design process. And I can't lie, at first my team and I thought we would just be brainstorming and sketching ideas. However, at the time, we didn't even know the problem we were trying to solve.
Alright, so here we created a rough outline of what our whole project would entail. So first we needed to narrow down our target audience. From there, we did our primary research mainly by interviewing people. Then we started brainstorming our prototypes by just drawing images and seeing what we wanted to do. Then we created our final product.
So as Joe mentioned before, the first step was to find our target market. Now, to do this, we made a collage or a set of images to kind of get us in the right mindset of where we could possibly go with our target market. For example, I worked on winter activities, where I looked into things like winter sports, like skiing and snowboarding, but also family activities, like going out and sledding or playing in the snow. These are all people who could use heated gear.
Next, we took a look at dog apparel. We found that Milwaukee Tool users would be more likely to spend money on their dogs, which is why we viewed this as a viable option to look into.
Next, I took a look at heated shoes. So I knew that heated shoes had a pretty big target market, and especially being in Wisconsin where it's pretty cold, I also looked at heated slippers and heated insoles and how they all work with all the wires.
And lastly, I looked at camping. Since Milwaukee Tool's main target market is devoted towards people involved in trades, I knew that by doing research into camping, that would be beneficial to us because due to the amount of people involved in trades who are also involved in camping, we could have a high target market for that.
So now that we had a ton of different directions that we could go with our product, we had to make a choice. With the help of our coach, we made this simple decision matrix that you can see on the right of the screen with our four categories across the top and a set of criteria along the left. Now, these criteria are based off of several different things that Milwaukee Tool loves to focus on. First, and arguably most important, is the user. In this section, we look at things like the access to the user base, as well as how much people actually need this type of product in the market. Next, we look into the business aspect, where we see things like the market size, how much people are willing to pay for this kind of product, and how relevant is it to Milwaukee Tool itself. Then, we look into the technical aspect, where we look at our own team's capabilities. Based off of these, each category was given a score, either a 5, a 3, or a 1, and since camping received the highest score, that was going to be our main focus.
So next, we took a look at our competition. We looked at a big power tool company and a main competitor to Milwaukee Tool, Makita. We saw that they recently launched a camping line, and we saw that they observed major success in this line, which further backed up our proof that we should go into camping.
All right, our next thing we need to do was conduct our primary research. So each of us interviewed at least a couple people that have some type of camping experience. So we asked them questions like, what were their needs and wants during their trip? What were their habits? So like, what was the general timeline of their experience? What did they dislike during their trip? And how did weather play a factor as well?
So our main takeaway from the interviews that we conducted was that there's 3 different types of campers. First of all, we have the backpackers. Now typically the backpackers will camp extremely light due to them only being able to pack necessities, and also they have the highest willingness to spend money on products due to their involvement within the activity. Second off, we have the car campers. The car campers have an increased want for heated gear and will typically spend the least amount of money. Lastly, we have the trailer/RV campers. Now these campers love an easy access to a power source and also have a massive emphasis on comfort.
So next, we recognized that we couldn't market to all three of these types of campers, so we decided to focus on two of them, backpackers and car campers. We found that these types of campers were most directly related and would be more likely to spend money on heated camping gear.
So now that we had a specific set of users as well as a bunch of problems to solve for them, we could move into the next step of the design process. And this step was to create these how might we statements. Now, these how might we statements go along the lines of how might we help users combat cold weather so that they can go camping in cold weather? Or how might we design a product that is necessary for both backpackers and car campers? By creating these how might we statements, we can make sure that we are as focused on the user as possible so we don't go off target and solve something that doesn't need to be solved.
Next, we began our design process. As you can see up on screen, we did many different sketches and we learned a lot from these sketches. What we learned is that we wanted a multi-use product. Especially for your backpackers and car campers, they emphasize packing lightly, so creating something that's multi-use that we can keep compact, they will be more likely to purchase this product. Next, we looked at utilizing heat, as that was the main focus of our problem statement. We also looked at adjustability. Especially your backpackers, they have to adapt to many different scenarios during a camping trip. So by creating this adjustability factor, they'll be able to use our product more and be more likely to purchase it. And then finally, simplicity. We want to keep our product simple and easy for everyone to use.
So this leads us into our solution as we created detailed sketches of a jacket attached to a sleeping bag. So we wanted to create a level of convenience for our target market by creating a Velcro attachment. So if you want to just use the jacket itself, you can. We also created a 3-setting heated button.
So now moving on to the jacket. As you can see in between the pockets, you'll see a battery pack that can be charged through either solar charging or USB charging. So even if you don't have an access to power, you can still enjoy that same adjustability and comfort as someone with the power source. You will also see on the top right an app, and through Bluetooth connectivity, you will be able to control the temperature of your jacket or sleeping bag at all times.
So we also added an inner liner that you can remove from the jacket. So chances are you're gonna probably be sweating a lot when you wear this. And we wanted to also make it washable, so to try and help maintain good hygiene.
All right, so now that we have our initial prototype complete, we can go out and get some opinions from people in the public. Based off this feedback, we can start to make improvements before making our physical prototype. Then we can take our physical prototype, test it, and improve it once again. And this way we can keep repeating the cycle until we create the perfect product, just like Milwaukee Tool does. This way we can really enforce the core Milwaukee value of always improving. Thank you all.
All right, hi, we are the Milwaukee Tool Packout Group. All right, here's Nicole, who is an electrical engineer at Milwaukee Tool who we interviewed during our project. She told us that it is sometimes difficult for her to keep her laptop charged while transitioning between the job site and her office. So imagine if Nicole is never able to remember to keep her laptop charged even though it is extremely vital to her job. One day, Nicole is called to a job site by her boss where there will be a lack of safe outlets to charge her laptop.
During this day, Nicole was called to share some important data with her boss. But as she opened her laptop very nervously, she noticed that the little red no battery light was flashing on. This was the 5th time this month that she had forgotten to charge her laptop before an important day. Nicole was told by her boss to leave and to find a safe outlet to charge her laptop.
So that leads us into our project. I'm Sam Guy.
I'm Naomi Morioka. I'm Sadiq Shapandi.
And I'm Sean Dahoff, and we are all juniors at Brookfield Central.
As we are introduced with our project, we are given this problem statement. How can we contribute to creating an even more versatile pack-out system that will allow for increased efficiency for hybrid users?
So first we had to understand what a hybrid worker was. And a hybrid worker is basically someone like Nicole who has to be flexible and traveling between a job and work site. This is important because according to Zippia, the career expert, 74% of US companies are planning on transitioning to a hybrid work model, which is why Milwaukee Tool should care about this incoming demographic.
And so what even is the pack-out system? The pack-out system is a modular storage system made by Milwaukee Tool and has a bunch of different containers and add-ons that can fit together kind of like Legos.
So after this initial stage of research, we needed to figure out what our target consumer needs were. So we first went to our coach, who was able to tell us where we could begin. We interviewed a mechanical engineer who told us who we could interview to find target user needs, as well as who we could interview to get advice on how to make an addition to the pack-out system. Next, we interviewed a pack-out designer who told us that when we make an addition to the pack-out system, we need to maintain the pack-out's durability. Next, we interviewed Nicole, the electrical engineer that we mentioned earlier, who was able to tell us her target user needs when she goes to and from a job site. Lastly, because we are obsessed with the end user, we made sure to interview not one, but 2 mechanical designers to get their confirmation on our solutions for Nicole's needs. The needs that Nicole discussed with us were, number 1, a clear surface to work on. Number 2, protection from the elements, because as we all know, a job site can get very dirty. And number 3, easy access to charging.
Our next step was to brainstorm. In this stage, we got together and gathered a list of ideas that would help answer our problem statement. Our first idea was a basic Milwaukee Tool computer case that could protect the laptop from the harsh conditions of the work environment.
Our next idea was a portable charger, which would be helpful for Nicole to avoid future embarrassment.
And then our third idea was just a shelf that could attach to the side of the pack-out system and could be used to write on or just put stuff on.
From these ideas, we converged onto our final design. As you can see here, our design is completely compatible with other pack-out products. And for this design, we basically took a basic compartment from the pack-out system and replaced the top with a desktop that serves as a mobile workspace. And as you can see on the inside, we redesigned it to be a mobile laptop charging station. In the middle, we have a slot for any size laptop. And on the side here, we have an M18 charging battery. And here we'll demonstrate the charging process. So you plug it in, turn on the mobile battery, and it's charging.
After we made our prototype, because we never settle and we're always improving, we also decided to make some future additions to this prototype. First, we made adjustable sides for the laptop so that we could put any size laptop into this computer case super easily. Next, we added a carrying strap so that you could carry the computer case anywhere you want to go without having to attach it to the pack-out system. Lastly, we added additional storage for things such as a mouse or office supplies so that you can carry those things with you as well. Finally, as we said earlier, we are obsessed with the end user. So when we came to the end of this project, we wanted to ask ourselves, what have we done for the end user? First off, is the computer protected? The computer is completely protected by the case. Second, is the computer charged? Because of the M18 battery contained within the case, the computer is always going to be able to be charged. Next, is the computer portable? Because the case can be attached to the packout system, the computer case is completely portable. And lastly, because we want to maintain the Milwaukee Tool brand, is the computer case durable? The computer case is made out of Milwaukee Tool materials, which makes it completely durable. Finally, we have a list of the materials we used, as well as the influences for our design, and the people that we interviewed. Thank you so much for watching our presentation.
People on Slack? I just keep seeing these Slack notifications. Probably not nighttime.
We've all wanted to build that DIY project we saw online, whether it's a simple birdhouse or just needing to fix your mailbox. Yet, the moment that task appears to be so simple, the second you Google it, you're left weeding through the millions of results. Click after click after click. We've all experienced the struggle, where we wish we could make that one click be our last click. Well, today, AI tools are here for anyone and everyone to use. Take ChatGPT, for example. This tool can write prompts, answer questions, and a whole lot more. But how does AI basically work, and how can we visualize this? Well, AI sorts words into word clusters and pulls from these word clusters in order to form a prompt. Take music word clusters in order to write a whole story about the different kinds of instruments or the different kinds of music.
And this is the field Milwaukee Tool wanted us to focus on the most. Hello, we are Team AI Interaction, and our problem statement is how can we help Milwaukee Tool improve passive customer interaction using AI tools like ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, and Codex. Hello, my name is Amavi Ikem.
My name is Nitya Madadi.
And I'm Theodore Polis.
And we work with our mentor, Eric, who we're very thankful for his assistance towards our project to develop our cluster deliverables, such as understanding the AI tools and the use towards it, researching those AI tools, testing those AI tools, and the benefit towards Milwaukee Tool, and then also drafting an idea for our prototype, or what we like to call our chatbot. And then our first approach towards this problem was the research. We researched the AI tools mentioned earlier, ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, and Codex, where ChatGPT generates human-like informative text using a statement or a question, while DALL-E 2 takes a statement approach, which generates images through that statement. Codex generates code based on that inputted description.
Now, we took into consideration the problem statement that Milwaukee Tool handed to us, and we took it from a customer approach. What if a customer were to ask a potential chatbot, what type of tool do I need to fix my shed? Well, they would want information based on that tool and pictures of that tool. They wouldn't necessarily need code based on that input description. So we eliminated it from our research process. And then we began trying to research both ChatGPT and DALL-E 2 in an integrated method. Let me show you. So the question that I mentioned before, what tool would I need to build a shed? We entered it into ChatGPT. Then we took the response that ChatGPT gave us, such as you need a hammer, a saw, etc., etc. We entered that into DALL-E 2 to get a cluster of images like so. Now we did this over and over and over again until we could understand exactly how the back end of our chatbot would work. And we drew this out in a flowchart to show you.
So then, using the example mentioned earlier, we created our flowchart using ChatGPT and DALL-E 2. So let's say a customer inputted a question such as, what tool do I need to build a shed? That question will then be inputted into ChatGPT, which will then output a response, such as you will need the tools like a hammer, a saw, etc., etc. Each and every one of those keywords will be entered into a for loop filter, which is then entered into DALL-E 2. DALL-E 2 will then output a generalized image platform. But
Milwaukee Tool will not be using an wide span of images. They'd be using their most recommended products based off that question. So they can have a satisfied customer.
Now, Milwaukee Tool is an exponentially growing company, so they obviously wouldn't be using ChatGPT or DALL-E 2 in the making of the back end of this chatbot. Rather, they would be using something called Azure's OpenAI, which is a Microsoft service. Basically, Milwaukee Tool employees would use this to produce their own version of a ChatGPT and DALL-E 2 that only contains information related to their tools and images of their tools. So once we figured out exactly how the back end of our chatbot would work, we got to the customer interaction portion of our project, and that was creating various logos of our chatbot. We took into consideration Milwaukee Tool's top culture values of end user to try and take into consideration two things. One, does our logo match with Milwaukee Tool's top culture values? And can someone recognize that this is Milwaukee Tool's product? So we did this multiple times, and we used HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to produce a prototype of exactly how this would look like. But we'll mention this later on in the presentation. But for now, without further ado, let me introduce to you TimHub, our Milwaukee Tool's tool recommendation hub. Basically, we named it Tim because Milwaukee Tool already has a chatbot named Olivia. However, Olivia more so assists customers with figuring out about Milwaukee's top culture and seeking employment opportunities at Milwaukee Tool. So we named ours Tim, because Tim is going to help you find the Milwaukee Tool that you need. And we also named it Hub because it's going to be a recommendation hub for customers. And we changed the design of the M in Tim to the bold, historic red Milwaukee Tool color so that they can recognize that it stands for M in the Milwaukee Tool. And we used the exact same lightning bolt that Milwaukee Tool has in their logo so that customers can easily see that both of the logos correlate with each other. Now, once we created this logo, we then got to fidgeting with our code and making our prototype.
We took inspiration from Microsoft's Bing AI while creating TimHub. This user-friendly interface makes that one click the last click, where a customer can scroll through example prompts or try it out for themselves. To learn more, we'll go to frequently asked questions from TimHub, or the customer can go to Ask Me Anything and see if TimHub can see and solve their problem. But we kept the online shopper in mind with TimHub. So this is a rendering of what TimHub would look like on a smartphone and a MacBook to involve all different types of customers.
Now, we wanted to go back to Milwaukee Tool's top culture values of always improving. Now, we wanted to make sure that we had all customers in mind. So let's say that a customer walked into a store and wanted to look for a tool. We wanted to make sure that no one's pushing the customer away and telling them to download this app. Instead, we wanted to find a way to bring TimHub straight to them. And since Milwaukee Tool's biggest partner is Home Depot, we edited out how an in-store kiosk would look like with TimHub. So let's say a customer walked into the store and wanted to look for a tool in-store. They could easily search it up here with the in-store kiosk, look for their product, and then go ahead and buy it right then and there. This was how we utilized always improving because we wanted to make sure that TimHub is versatile enough so that it can be anywhere and can assist any type of customer.
Now that you've seen this new wave of AI technology, please try it out for yourself. Take out your phones and scan the QR codes of ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, and Codex, and see what AI can solve your problems today. Thank you all for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Right down to the tiny transitions.
Hi, we are Launch Global Business working with Milwaukee Tool for Gen Z recruitment. Let's meet the team. I'm Sri Mokasi, I'm the meeting facilitator.
I'm Caroline Brady, I'm the project manager.
I'm Tommy Frate, and I was a team's communicator. For a quick introduction, Milwaukee Tool is an American company that develops, manufactures, and markets power tools. Since 2016, Milwaukee Tool has been the largest supplier of cordless power tools in North America.
So for our problem statement, we were tasked with Generation Z attraction and recruitment to potential employees. So after talking to Mike Rinaldi, who's a Gen Z employee at Milwaukee Tool, we learned that thousands of career fairs occur each year, with companies coming from all over the place in hopes of grabbing your attention. This consists of long hours of moving from booth to booth and the same robot script getting repeated. This ultimately became draining to 21-year-old Mike Rinaldi, who, like many other Gen Zs, couldn't stay focused for longer than 15 minutes. What Mike needed was a marketing strategy that not only let him connect with his generation effectively, but let him understand the culture and the transparency of a place he'd be working with. With these career fairs, he didn't understand how this would be possible.
So our focus for this project was to attract Gen Z, which are the ages 11 through 26. We were primarily focusing on those who recently came out of college, and we were looking to attract them to both Milwaukee and Milwaukee Tool. So after looking at our problem statement and Mike's story, we started to do some research. We looked into things such as the Milwaukee Tool Run and Milwaukee Tool recruitment bonuses, but it didn't target Gen Z the way that we wanted to. We then came across podcasts. Podcasts are an audio file in which 2 or more people go back and forth talking on a unique topic. And according to Demand Sage, a company that manages data, around 475 million people have listened to podcasts in 2023. And according to many large podcast streaming services such as Spotify, around 50 to 71% of their annual podcast listeners are Gen Z. Now that we know that podcasts are big within Gen Z, how does this help recruit Gen Zers more effectively than a career fair? Well, it solves all the problems identified by Gen Zers such as Mike Rinaldi. For example, career fairs are very repetitive and can be overwhelming because you only have a short time at the booth. What podcasts do is they put Gen Z in a place where they feel most comfortable, which is the media, and allow them to have a lot more time and the ability to pause to actually take in and understand that information. Another thing is that in career fairs, these Gen Zers are connecting with a more experienced employee. Meanwhile, and with their peers, they know that the peers understand their needs and their worries. And then another thing that we identified that would really help Milwaukee Tool is right now, Milwaukee Tool has seasonal engagement with the Gen Zers. With the podcast, you would have year-long engagement with the Gen Zers because podcasts are released weekly and consistently. Not only do they have seasonal engagement, but they would also be able to target a wider range of Gen Zers across the nation.
So as Sri said, we wanted this to be a year-long thing and not seasonal. So what we did is we created a podcast calendar. This shows as the 4 weeks, new topics arranged, and we decided to post these on Wednesdays because Message heard a podcast company and proved to us that it's the best day to post a podcast. We also decided to do this 1 time a week, so we personally have the time to create an informative podcast while also letting our viewers not get spammed. Then finally, we're going to post these on places such as Spotify, the Milwaukee Tool website, and Apple Podcasts. So for the 9 weeks, we created a podcast, and it was originally a 15-minute interview. Now we created this as a 15-second thing to show you our culture portion of our podcast.
Because you mentioned culture, is that like a big factor to
You can't go anywhere to Milwaukee Tool without talking about the culture at some point or whatever. And it's easy to see the energy that they kind of brought to that, and both the technical knowledge and the intangibles.
Yeah.
The intangibles.
Sticking on the topic of culture, Milwaukee Tool is built on 6 main culture pillars. A company with a strong culture is often seen as a desirable place to work, and employees will feel more comfortable when taking risks and sharing ideas. Additionally, employees who are happy and engaged with the culture are more likely to stay with the company long term. The first of the 6 culture pillars that our team focused on was candid. Candid means being straightforward and open, which we were throughout our project. We gave each other effective feedback on every decision that we made in order to eventually come out with the best outcome. We also kept a one-team mentality in mind throughout the project. especially during our decision-making process at the start. Originally, we were all going to make our own ideas and come together and select the best one. But instead, we combined our ideas and created the best idea that was possible, which was the podcast. Our favorite of the 6 culture pillars is always improving. Our whole project was based on being unique, which meant always thinking outside of the box to keep Milwaukee Tool on top of the competition. No matter where we were, the 3 of us were always communicating and focused on this project. Whether it was launch class, physics, or math, the 3 of us were trying to find the best solution possible. Now that we've given you the why, we need to tell you the how. First, Milwaukee Tool needs to select a host or 2 to appear on every episode of the podcast. This consistency in the host allows the listeners to create a bond and eventually trust the host over time. Milwaukee Tool also needs to find a new guest for every episode, and this guest should be knowledgeable and experienced, and typically Gen Z, so that the listeners can create a bond and also trust the guest. Once Milwaukee Tool successfully records their first podcast, they need to post it online. By using RSS.com, Milwaukee Tool is able to understand their audience and watch their podcast growth over time using cross-platform analytics. Collaborating with other podcasts is also a great way to expand the outreach and talk to new people. RSS.com also allows automatic distribution for the podcast into the leading podcast networks, which are Spotify, Apple, Google, Samsung, and Amazon. The last and most important piece of information to starting the podcast is to not stop posting. The more you post, the more your fan base will grow. Also, most failed podcasts happen due to a lack of consistency and doubt of success after less than just 5 episodes.
In conclusion, we looked to create a unique solution that not only attracted Gen Z, but also fit with Milwaukee Tool's culture values. We hope to see a rise in Gen Z workers at Milwaukee Tool. We'd like to thank our coach, Mr. Medeiros, and our teacher, Mrs. Kelly and Mrs. Fisher. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and if you'd like to see our full podcast, please scan the QR code. Thank you.
Hi, we are from the Launch Global Business Group, and we are working with Milwaukee Tool on a green energy solution. We are focusing specifically on the global lithium shortage. So, my name is David May, and I'm the communications lead.
I'm Tyler Tierney, the project manager.
And I'm Mason Medved, the meeting facilitator.
Clicker problems.
Point it towards me.
Awesome. So our problem statement is, how can Milwaukee Tool better prepare and adapt for a global lithium shortage? And we think we found several great ways for Milwaukee Tool to achieve this.
First of all, there are several reasons why Milwaukee Tool needs to be concerned about the current lithium supply chain. First, it is told that lithium mining takes on the environment. In addition to degrading the soil, causing water shortages, and damaging the ecosystem, 10 tons of CO2 is produced for every 1 ton of lithium extracted from the ground. It is also important to consider that the companies that provide Milwaukee Tool with their lithium source the material from China. And as global trends with China increase, it is important for Milwaukee Tool to focus on a more sustainable supply chain. Lastly, the labor that China uses to mine for lithium is often poor and exploits the laborers, and with no hope of improving their quality of life, all of these made us look for different ways that Milwaukee Tool could create a more sustainable supply chain.
Do you want to get it? So our first solution is battery recycling program. But first I want to tell you a story about my dad. You see, my dad is pretty much your average consumer, and he's a homeowner, and he has a propensity for fixing random things around the house. And being such, we own a few electric batteries, and One of them is currently sitting in our basement dead simply because my dad had no idea what to do with it. You can imagine how surprised he was when I told him that any of these tools can be recycled at any Home Depot. Maybe you're a little bit surprised too. You see, the problem that Milwaukee Tool has is not about its process or its product, it's about its consumer awareness. In fact, we didn't even know that Milwaukee Tool had a battery recycling program until we met with one of the VPs. You see, someone could currently go through the entire process of owning a Milwaukee Tool without ever finding out about Eco Options, which is Home Depot's battery recycling program, or Call to Recycle, the company that Milwaukee Tool works with.
Our next solution would be continued sodium-ion development. But first, I want to talk about what is a sodium-ion battery. It's very similar to the commonly found lithium-ion battery that's in a Tesla, your iPhone, and in a Milwaukee Tool drill. But it says it uses a sodium ion as the charge carrier. Now, there are many key differences between sodium-ion and lithium-ion batteries, and the first is in the materials themselves. Over the past 10 years, the price of lithium has tripled due to increased demand for lithium products, making it 8 times more expensive than the price of sodium. Next, we have a chart here with the abundance of sodium, which is the red on the far left, and then lithium, which is the blue on the way far left. Sodium is 1,000 times more abundant in nature, which means that it's more common and there's more of it. And this is significant because researchers from Finland conducted a study where they took in different global supply estimates, how much we have now, and how fast we can recycle and put these back into the economy. The most optimistic results is that we would have enough lithium to get us through 2100, whereas the pessimistic results are we're closing in about 17 years.
So you're probably wondering, how powerful is a sodium battery? Well, it's not as powerful as lithium. Lithium has an energy density of 250 watt-hour per kilograms, while sodium only has around 150 watt-hours per kilograms. However, sodium does have the edge in safety. Sodium is resistant to fire due to heat, mechanical damages, and electrical faults.
So our next steps for these solutions are for the recycling program marketing programs. So this includes marketing inside the box when you open up a Milwaukee Tool, detailing what to do when the battery's at the end of its life. This includes in the aisle where Milwaukee Tools are sold, detailing what to do when the battery dies eventually. And then our second thing is bounty programs. So bounty programs are a great way for Milwaukee Tool to get a lot of tools in a short amount of time. So they do this by incentivizing the customers to turn in their dead batteries through giving them a small store credit at the end. So the way this could benefit Milwaukee Tool is, say they got a lot of batteries from a bounty program, they would get turned into Home Depot. They could then give this to Call to Recycle on Milwaukee Tool's behalf, and after Call to Recycle gives this to Redwood Materials, who is the battery recycler, so they'll actually take the battery and turn it into the raw lithium. They can give this on behalf to Samsung SDI, who creates Milwaukee Tool's battery cells. And this is a great way for Milwaukee Tool to recoup the costs of the battery recycling program. And then our last thing is government incentives. So government incentives would be a little bit further down the line for Milwaukee Tool. But eventually, working with them, this would be a great way to help the entire industry move towards helping the consumers and companies recycle their dead lithium batteries.
On the sodium-ion side, our 2 solutions are continued sodium-ion development and research, and the second one's a more physical deliverable, which is a battery station. But first, I want to talk a little bit about parallel pathing, what that's going to look like for Milwaukee Tool. This would be taking 2 trails and continuing the production of lithium batteries and products, while also dipping in some funds, resources, and manpower into developing what can be sodium-ion. And a good example of this is CATL, the world's largest lithium-ion producer. They produce for companies such as Tesla and a lot of other electric vehicle companies at the moment. They're currently developing a 200 watt-hour per kilogram battery, and if you remember what Mason said, the average lithium is around 250. So there's a lot of competition to control market share and look for a more eco-friendly alternative. The next would be Natron Energy. They're currently partnered with United Airlines to provide power to small land vehicles that would haul out your luggage and other essentials. And there is a little bit of privacy on the agreement, and so I don't know if they're going to be using this as a data center, like a storage pack, or if it's going to be actually implemented in the technology, but they are going to be using the industrial blue pack from Natron Energy. And a deliverable that I believe Milwaukee Tool can start right away would be taking one of these battery packs and actually installing it in one of the already developed pack outs. And you could haul this out to a work site, power your tools all day, and also personal electronic equipment. And then instead of having to take all the tools back home, you can just take back the pack out and then bring it back the next day. This would be in place of a gasoline generator.
We truly believe that if Milwaukee Tool invests in both of these solutions, they will be well prepared and ready to adapt as lithium becomes more and more scarce. Whether it be reducing their current need for lithium by focusing on developments in sodium ion or reusing and recycling their current lithium supply, Milwaukee Tool has an important role to play in the industry moving forward, leading other companies as they work to create a more efficient supply chain. Milwaukee Tool is a company focused on disruptive innovation and never settling, and if they won't lead the way, who will? So we'd like to thank our coach, Jason Julius, and for all his time and ideas, and then we'd also like to thank Mark Hickok, the Vice President of Safety and Regulation, for meeting with us for our project.
Thanks again for putting up with the technical difficulties, but if there's any questions, feel free to come up and ask us afterwards. Thanks again.
Thank you for your patience. It'll only be one more minute. Hello, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Milwaukee Tool Go-Kart presentation from the Advanced Manufacturing and Design strand. I'm Kevin Coughlin. I'm a junior at Tosa West. Sorry about the technical difficulty.
I'm going backward. You gotta stop moving.
I'm Jolie Fogarino. I'm a senior at Tosa West.
And I'm Thomas Forrest, I'm junior at Tosa West.
What is Milwaukee Tool? Milwaukee Tool is a US-based company dedicated to the development and manufacturing of power tool systems for professional uses. Drills, grinders, trimmers, and a variety of other mechanical tools are all things the company makes. Milwaukee Tool was founded in 1924, and in its almost 100-year history, the company has upheld outstanding innovation, commitment to quality, and a desire to inspire leaders.
Now, first off, we'd like to give you a bit of background on our team. Originally, we started as a 5-person team, and we were going to build an RC car. But due to mentor problems with other teams, we eventually combined, and when we met with our new mentor as a 14-person team, we decided that we wanted to build a go-kart, and that's what we ended up doing.
Now we were given the problem statement to build and design using one or more Milwaukee Tool motors, a 3 or more powered vehicle focused on maximum speed output.
Our design process began with our first steps where we created the initial designs as well as created teams.
We then went on to building the frame of the go-kart itself.
Next was test and revise, where we experimented with our parts and made them better.
And the most important part of the project was just having fun making the go-kart and driving it around.
Our first steps began by splitting our class into 3 teams: the weld team dedicated to making the physical cart itself, the human resources team dedicated to communication and organization, and the code team dedicated to implementing programming in the cart. Once these teams were formed, they got together, brainstormed ideas, created tasks, and got to work.
Now we had to start off with the structure. The structure started off with a wood base, which you can see in this bottom left corner. Kevin is here sitting on a wooden base. He was our human measurement for the start. And then just in the corner of that, you can see a wooden metal frame we built around that. This was for stability so that we could connect the seat, the axle for the wheels, the front fork, and even our motor. We then went forward with this and we had to level out the front and the rear. The whole basis of this had to be level, that way we wouldn't pop a wheelie or possibly fly forward. Then we realized that this was going to sit about 28 inches high, so we built a wooden box, as you can see Jimmy in the corner here working on that. And that was to raise the fork and so that it could be slightly lower and not be so tall.
Next was testing and revision, where we installed the motor, throttle, and brake systems.
The first part of testing and revision was installing the motor itself. To install the motor, we used 3D printed mounts and metal fastenings to hold the motor down inside of the go-kart. And on top of that, we created a second support that directly attached to the Milwaukee Tool pole hog, which allowed us to power the motor. And then from there, we had to make slight adjustments to the machine, to the pole itself, so that would securely tension the chain.
We then went forward and worked on our throttle prototype. We originally had a right angle grinder as seen in the top right corner, and that was used to build our prototype with the rear brake from our bicycle we used. Then we went forward with this when we got the whole hog, which was a different size handle, so we had a whole 3D mount difference that had to be printed. It took about 2 days. And then we also had the bike brake. We were able to use that again. We had a couple issues with the size difference and getting it to hook on it without consistently pulling the trigger. This was adjusted when we had the whole hog and we had our mount, and it was a lot of size constraint. We eventually had to work on the sprocket as well, because the sprocket was used on the angle grinder as a socket, a socket adjustment, and then we had to change it so that it would be a drill attachment. And with that, we were able to get our chain on, and it worked pretty well.
Next was installing the brake system. Our original plan was to take a front brake off of a bike we disassembled and use that to stop the cart. The issue was this front brake wasn't going to be powerful enough, so we added a hydraulic brake, which is a much stronger brake that we took from a wheel and axle kit we ordered off of Amazon, and we connected that brake to the front of the cart using that lever you see right there.
Then this is our final design of the go-kart. You can see it on the board and right here. And we decided the next steps Milwaukee Tool needed to take with this go-kart was advertisement for either the Milwaukee Tool Challenge itself, showing kids how fun it can be in schools that they should do it, or to show off Milwaukee Tool's motors' power and how they can power a lot of weight and they have a lot of torque, so it will be efficient at work site. Now, the next thing we did was problems and solutions. The first problem we ran into was quad bike versus trike. The second problem we ran into was the battle of the motors. And the third one was how to use code.
Start off with our first problem, the quad cart versus the trike. This was not really an issue, but more of like a class discussion. We wanted to build our go-kart in the beginning, which would have been a 4-wheel cage type of system, but we were donated the lawnmower tires on the rear, and we wanted to reuse this bicycle that we got from a scrapyard. Now with that, it was a lot of team discussions on how it would go about, a lot of like physically mapping it out to get it diffused through disputes. And then we had to work with team discussions and figured out that the trike would be the best way for the agility and the speed. All of this had to be done pretty fast, which was one of our Milwaukee Tool culture values, was to work with speed, but also have an accurate goal in the end, with the whole team working together.
Problem number 2 was battle of the motors. This was one of the most significant problems we encountered in this project. Our original plan was to use a right angle impact drill to act as the motor for the cart. Our concern with this was that that drill really did not have a lot of torque and did not have fine speed control. It only had 3 speed modes, which we thought would be a safety concern. We overcame this issue by switching to the whole hog, a much more powerful tool with 21 times the torque and full variable speed control. This shows how our team embodies the Milwaukee Tool value, never settle, always improving, as we switch to a better tool to increase the maximum speed of our cart.
And the third problem we ran into was how to use code. Originally, we wanted to directly control the motors with code, but quickly we realized that was out of scope and not possible for us. But it was a valuable learning experience about the motors themselves and how to code. Next on, we looked at emergency stop and temperature sensor. Sadly, we couldn't do that due to time constraints, but again, we learned a lot. And I think this really represents the candid values of Milwaukee Tool of understanding your scope and when you need to drop projects as one team. With the emergency stop and the temperature sensor. One thing that the code team did do though is we made a back brake light, which when you press down the brake, it lights up, and that's just for safety reasons.
What did we learn from this project? Time management was one of the biggest things we learned. We had 45 days to complete this project, which sounds like a long time, but we really had so much stuff to do. Every hour counted, and we constantly had to assess what things we could get done and what we weren't going to have time for and had to scrap. Communication was another big thing, specifically student-teacher communication. The student leader and teacher assigned to both the code and the weld teams had very different problem-solving styles, which led to a lot of confusion and team arguments that lost us time as a whole. We overcame this issue by having open discussions, which really taught us the importance of being able to communicate with those that think differently than us, and it shows how our team embodies the Milwaukee Tool value of giving straightforward feedback even in difficult situations. Then came managing a large team. Our team had 14 people, which is a much larger team than any of us had ever worked in before. We had to figure out how to delegate tasks to all these people, how to communicate between everybody, and most importantly, how to make sure everyone's ideas got heard.
And then another thing we learned to deal with was our setbacks. We had many setbacks right from the start. One team had a mentor and everyone else kind of didn't have a mentor for the first 2 weeks. And then we decided to combine teams, and then we ended up losing our mentor like the last month of this project. And we thank our mentors now for jumping in at the last second. And we learned a lot of valuable lessons in dealing with those setbacks and still pushing forward, and we were able to create something amazing. And then a lot of other things we learned was the vehicle design. A lot of us didn't know how this would turn out. Wasn't even sure how it would come together or what parts were needed to make it together. It was a lot of learning experience for most of us, and it was definitely worth it. And if we could do this again, a lot of the things we do differently would start with communication. The communication right from the start was a little rocky, and we were never sure when somebody would be there, so when somebody wouldn't, what we were going to do that day. It was still really open and in the air. I think we really settled down on that towards the end though, and I wish we would have started with that in the beginning.
And leading from communication, another important thing we realized was we needed better task delegation. Because a lot of times we'd have a team member where they had a task, but after they finished that task they wouldn't know what to do. Or we'd have 2 team members on the same task butting heads, which a lot of times could cause problems. That leads into the next thing we were thinking of that we would do differently, is having a smaller overall team. I think we would have a more functional and efficient go-kart if we had a smaller team, because we'd have less butting heads, there would be less ideas in the air, and we wouldn't have as much problems with people butting heads and wanting to do one thing, another person wanting to do another thing. But I think now with the bigger team, we have more pizzazz, like we got the flag and backlights. If a smaller team wouldn't be able to do that. And another important thing is understanding our scope. Like with the code team, we didn't truly understand our scope, so that led to a lot of problems of, we weren't able to finish this problem because we didn't know our scope. And that was another problem with a lot of other people. And lastly, we'd like to thank our mentors who gave us these parts and came in last minute. We'd like to thank people who donated parts to us too, and our teachers.
And then we also want to thank you guys. We appreciate all of the attention and all of the attention towards the project we made. We loved making it throughout the whole process. And then we just want to do a small little demo of our throttle. We were really proud of how it ended up working.
Milwaukee Tool and be coached by Daniel Medeiros. Let's meet our team. I am Shane Hunter. I am a senior at Brookfield Central High School, and I was the design lead.
I'm Sophie Moses. I'm a senior at Brookfield East, and I was the communicator.
I'm Nathan Langford. I'm a junior at Brookfield East High School, and I was the project manager.
Our problem statement for the project was Generation Z attraction and recruitment. When given our problem statement, we had very high hopes and expectations on where this could go. We were Gen Z after all, and we knew the culture and the trends that Gen Z had. We were super confident and had very high hopes and expectations, and we got right to work with our problem statement. We made many concepts and presented them to our coach and Caitlin Casper, who works in brand marketing at Milwaukee Tool. We were able to settle on one idea that we all liked and one idea that we believed could really combat our problem statement, until we ran into a roadblock. Now, whether you are going to a new school, joining a new team, or even applying for a new job, there was always one question in the back of your mind. What is the culture in this new environment? A question and a problem that our group truly was not ready for. You see, we totally were super confident in being able to relate back to Gen Z that we overlooked being able to relate back to Milwaukee Tool. We got right into this, setting up a meeting with our coach and having him explain the culture pillars of Milwaukee Tool. The next week, we were able to go to the Brookfield headquarters and tour the headquarters for ourselves. We also got hands-on experience with power tools firsthand. After fully diving into the Milwaukee Tool culture, we were able to retouch our idea, a clothing line called Milwaukee Tool Culture.
All right, so next we had to brainstorm. So we had to find something that Gen Z would be appealed to without it being boring. So we had a lot of ideas at the start, but as we went on, we narrowed it down to 3 and eventually landed on merchandising. We chose this because it could give us the most creative freedom, as well as we were drawn to it from the start. This would also benefit Milwaukee Tool because it's something fresh and new to the company that they already have the apparel line. And so since this is a clothing line, we would be selling hats and hoodies, not just t-shirts, as well as we would be selling it on the Swag Shop, which is an employee website for apparel.
So why merchandise? Outerwear generates 6,100 impressions for every dollar spent. So not only is it impactful, but it's very price efficient. 80% of Americans have a company name or t-shirt, and we really wanted to play into this, but not only have a company name or logo like Milwaukee Tool already has, but we wanted to have designs that appeal to the younger generations. We also know that consumer behavior is affected by 4 main factors. Those are cultural, social, psychological, and personal, and we really wanted to dive into the culture aspect of this.
So now that we know why we're going to merchandise, we have to figure out what we're going to do. So we found that 88% of millennials or Gen Z say that company culture is important to their career choice. With that, we want to focus on the Milwaukee Tool culture pillars with our clothing line. So for those of you who don't know, the Milwaukee Tool culture pillar, there are 6 Milwaukee Tool culture pillars, and these are the foundation for what Milwaukee Tool is built on. These culture pillars are candid, one team, speed, agility, and urgency, obsessed, never settle, and empowered leaders. So our first design is this one. This is a more minimalistic design that focuses on the candid culture pillar with the built on trust. And this has the red to relate back to the Milwaukee Tool color and increase brand recognition.
Our next design is the shirt we are wearing right now. It focuses on the one team culture pillar. It of course has one team in big bold letters to really emphasize the one team aspect. It has the signature red of Milwaukee really playing into the logo and company. It has the tough and rocky graphics, something really connecting with Milwaukee Tool and their power tools and what they do. It has the Milwaukee skyline, really playing into the culture of not only Milwaukee Tool, but the city itself. And then of course it has the brand recognizable logo.
All right, next we have speed, agility, and urgency. It's also a very minimalistic design. I made it with 3 tiers, and as it goes down, it builds up to urgency, which is the most bold, and to show this is the most important word on the design. And then I also added the Milwaukee Tool logo on the bottom.
So this next design has a large obsessed because it focuses on the obsessed pillar. Now, to a lot of people, obsessed can be a difficult word, and in fact, it has a negative connotation to most people. So to combat that, I really want to add a dictionary definition to just explain how obsessed is defined at Milwaukee Tool and how they see obsessed.
The next design is the Never Settle pillar. It is a very modern and clean design, really appealing to the younger generations, such as Gen Z. It, of course, incorporates not only the colors, but the Milwaukee building itself, and states the second part of the culture pillar, which is so important, always improving. And I felt like our team really improved throughout this project.
Lastly, we have empowered leaders. So it has kind of the more Milwaukee graphic as the One Team shirt does to show the empowerment of Milwaukee Tool. The leaders is in a different color to make it stand out. And then of course on the bottom I added the Milwaukee Tool logo.
Okay, so we also wanted to add into the university designs. We noticed that more Gen Z than any other generation are going to college, and with that comes a great sense of pride for the university that they are going to. This sort of becomes their own personal culture, which we can relate back to the Milwaukee Tool culture. So we wanted to focus on MSOE because MSOE is a large, it gives a lot of the Milwaukee Tool employees. So this first design has a large MSOE with a smaller Milwaukee Tool logo. And then the second design is based on a shirt Milwaukee Tool already has with the MSOE logo on the back and their graduating class to make the shirt more customizable.
All right, our goal is to distribute these at college and job fairs that Milwaukee Tool attends, as well as also include it on the Swag Shop website, as I mentioned before. We hope to see at least a 15% increase in Gen Z employees as we launch this clothing line. Now we know that t-shirts alone won't attract Gen Z to work at Milwaukee Tool, but Gen Z are way more likely to work at a company that appreciates their culture, and this is what this clothing line does. As well as tracking, so there is a QR code on the tag of our shirts that potential employees can scan, which can tell us if they apply for an internship or a job based on them scanning the tag on the shirt.
So this here is an example of what the shirts will look like on the Milwaukee Tool website. It'll have a mock-up of the shirt, and it'll also have a description of the shirt and the culture pillar, how it relates back to Milwaukee Tool. So with that, we would like to thank you for listening, and I hope you guys all have a nice day.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to start with two quick questions. How do products launch and what stages do they undergo before they're ready for consumers? With our project, we focused on product development and the processes that lead to how products are released. We worked tirelessly from start to finish to add an addition to the Milwaukee Tool line of OPE products, or outdoor power equipment. And stemming from our obsession, we have this to offer. So hello, my name is Matthew.
I'm Dakila, and our partner Mia could not be here today, but Matt will be speaking for her.
And I'm Charlie. So how we actually did this is we each focused on a specific industry that uses OPE tools in their daily life, and on top of that, we specified with a specific user. These users were an arborist, which is essentially just a tree surgeon that manages and cultivates the growth of trees.
A snow professionalist, someone who oddly looks forward to their job.
A large landscaping team, people that manage the green space of corporate, residential, or commercial sites.
And the average homeowner, but although they may not be professionals, they still have needs too that require tools in maintaining the exterior of their homes.
So as you can see with our problem statement, we started at the very beginning with product development. We then went into identifying a user and prototyping the tool. From there, we refined and came with a solution for our product.
This is our amazing coach, Justin, and he did an amazing job walking us through the product development process. And we really appreciate his help. We really couldn't have done this without him, but that isn't surprising, seeing as he's an industrial designer from Milwaukee Tool.
So using a method that Milwaukee Tool professionals use when they're developing their own products, we identified 6 main parts in our project process. Those being research, ideation, prototyping, testing, revisions, and solutions.
Identifying a user was probably the most difficult part of this project. It required us to first identify a user and then identify the types of OPE tools they use in their day-to-day lives. From there, we were all set off on our own very unique pathways for success.
Once we had those unique pathways and that identified user, we began to brainstorm what kind of tools they use in their daily life and where their current solutions could be improved upon, since we're always improving with Milwaukee. This actually led into ideation and seeing what tool we could develop so that we could at least meet the expectations that a given user had for a tool.
Meeting these expectations isn't what Launch or this project is about. We're actually set to draw and prototype these tools. After all, changing people's day-to-day lives is what product development is about.
And for our next part of our process, the most essential part was reaching out to other peers and professionals to get feedback on our rough sketches. And then for the most essential part, using that feedback we received to make revisions on our tool. That moved us into making our final sellable tool and sketching that out.
So although our project didn't have us working with engineers to specifically design a working prototype, we still saw the necessity in the project to design a working prototype that at least showed the functionality and how our users could actually use the tool. So shown here is our groupmate Mia's focus. She focused on the arborist, and with that, the universal tool that all arborists carry, the scrunch. If you don't know what a scrunch is, it's essentially 2 sockets and a flathead screwdriver attached, and it's used on a chainsaw when you're fixing the blades or essentially just opening up the oil and the lubricant compartments. Mia's original focus had her focusing on making 3 drawings. These just focusing on the design and the scale and the functionality of the scrunch, while focusing on those 2 sockets and the flathead screwdriver. As she made her rough prototype, she kind of focused on 2 additions to the scrunch that are kind of more visible here. Talking with arborists, she realized that 2 things that they didn't like was necessarily how the scrunch felt in their hands and additions that could be made to the scrunch. So, Mia added an ergonomic handle that focused on improving leverage when turning the scrunch, as well as a small sharpener up on the top left there that was used for small hand clippers that an arborist would carry with them.
Have your hands ever been super cold in the wintertime due to shoveling or just because of the cold weather? Well, I created a heated handle to go along with the shovel. As you can see here, this is a tactical shovel, not your shovel you see every day. And some of the features that it comes with is serrated edges, as long as a ruler, and like I said, the heated handle. These are my rough sketches that I designed along with the battery and the different features that it comes with. As I moved into my prototypes, I decided to go with the normal shovel you see every day, along with the salt scooper. And I decided to stick with the salt scooper because it's not something you see every day. It's not normal, but I decided to add the ruler onto the actual shovel, along with the heated handle and the grips.
So as I was researching landscapers and their job, I came to realize that the most important part of their job was actually communication. So the prototype that I focused on was a walkie-talkie. And for my original research and designing, I had 3 schools of thought. Pictured up on the top is just a small wrist-mounted walkie-talkie that had 3 small buttons on it. These 3 small buttons each had a specific message that would be sent out to the team that a landscaper could press as they needed. On the right, you can see just the standard walkie-talkie design, the thing that comes to mind when you picture a walkie-talkie, the push-to-talk, the voice chat, the antenna coming out the top, just the standard design. And then down at the bottom, I had a smart walkie-talkie. This one is essentially just a display screen with that push-to-talk feature that you're used to, as well as just quick messages that you can scroll through when you need to send out just quick responses or messages to the team. As I reached out to professionals and got their feedback on what they thought about this product and started to design my prototypes, a new design actually came up, and that's pictured up at the top. This brings that smart walkie-talkie into a more improved version, which is easier to see with these final drawings. A lot of the users that I talked to and researched with, they really like the design that I have up here, which is essentially just a chest-mounted walkie-talkie that kept it off their belt, out of their hands, and away from anything that they needed to do. A lot of the features here is just those smart walkie-talkie features, focusing on that display screen and the standard push-to-talk that you're used to.
When I was thinking about our average homeowners, something that we don't really need is another piece of equipment. But what we could use is something that maintains the maintenance of our equipment. For example, a lawnmower or a weed whacker. I decided on making a scraper to clean those materials and get all the debris off. I used the same base handle that they already have and decided to make it a multi-tool with interchangeable heads or bits. I came up with about like 5 different bits, but after getting feedback, I realized all of them weren't necessary and some were very similar to one another. So I scrapped a couple and narrowed them down to just 3, which was my curved scraper, wide flare scraper, and a thin angled scraper. When making my prototype, we tried clay, but that didn't really work too well. So I got a pencil and shaved it down to really show off the angle I wanted for the thin angled scraper. Then I moved for my other 2, and I made these out of poster paper, and I showed off really a side profile of what I wanted our curved scraper to look like, and then my wide flare scraper on the right side, and then at the top, it was more of a hexagonal piece, because my original idea was to use a screw, but that wasn't very safe, and there's already a hexagonal piece that exists with Milwaukee Tool that I decided to incorporate. When moving into my final sellable tool, I ended up adding some grips on the side and one for a thumb rest so that it wouldn't get tedious or hard to hold as you're cleaning.
Over the course of the 8 weeks, we had a lot of great experiences learning about product development, teamwork, reaching out to professionals, and just everything that comes together to make a product. But the top 3 things that we identified throughout this project was, firstly, identifying customer needs, reaching out to customers, having honest conversations with them, seeing what they like about products, seeing what they don't like, really helped us narrow down where we could improve with their existing products.
The main part of product design is really focusing on what your product looks like, but keeping your specific user in mind.
And talking to professionals is probably the most important part of this project. It required us to actually go out there and talk to people who know most about this.
So once again, a huge thank you to Milwaukee Tool and our coach, Justin. He really helped us bring our designs to life within that Milwaukee Tool culture in that book. And thank you to those professionals that were able to reach out to us and share some of their time. And thank you guys for listening.
All right, my name is Stephanie Kelly. I am one of the instructors in the LAUNCH program on the English side of things. Let's give one more round of applause for our incredible students today. Oh my gosh. Truly, students, we are so proud of the work that you have done over the last 8 weeks. To get up here and to present like this is not easy, and we are very proud of what you've done. As an English teacher, I've spent 15 years trying to get students to give dynamic presentations within the 4 walls of my classroom. And I can tell you, being a LAUNCH teacher and having this authentic opportunity for the students to get up here and to practice is incredible. And they may not realize it yet, but it is a skill that will stay with them for a very, very long time. Milwaukee Tool, this would not be possible today without your generosity, both in terms of your time and your resources. So could we please have a round of applause for Andy, Daniel, and his Milwaukee Tool team. I was talking with my colleague, Dr. Saharath, in the hallway out back, and he said that he had a student come up to him and say, Dr. Saharath, listen, I'm still pretty nervous when I give presentations, but these presentations were the first that I was actually really excited to give. And so For the launch program, Dr. Hall and Mrs. Fisher for putting this together. Thank you for giving our students an opportunity to give real, authentic presentations. I'm now going to turn it over to Andy, who's going to go through some exciting results.
Thank you very much. Dan, is Dan? Dan, come on. Get up here. Dan's trying to push himself in the back because he's got a couple teams here in the top 10. But a small conflict of interest, but Dan's integral on the Milwaukee Tool side in supporting the launch program. So you're going to be part of the top 3. First and foremost, wow, I've never been more insecure about my own job security. That's why this is fun for me as someone that's been in my career for about 25 years. It's very motivating to see what's going to be pushing me to the last 25 years of my career. So congratulations to everyone. Just one last round of applause for you all and your coaches. I know it's a cliche, but I think, all the teams in launch this year are winners. Based on the different challenges that you've taken on, it really shows kind of your dedication to your futures and to your careers. And I'll say, the one thing I hope you realize working with Milwaukee Tool is really the backbone to our growth and our future growth is our people and our culture. You hear us talk about it all the time because it's real, it's part of our everyday, and it's what drives our passion at Milwaukee Tool. So hopefully we see you soon. But without any further ado, we had to pick 3. So we had a panel of judges, all judging. Megan has tabularized the results, and I think we'll start with 3rd place. And I'll do 3, 2, and then you take 1. That sounds good. All right, so in 3rd place, on the IT strand with Coach Eric Albrecht, Amika, Teddy, and Nitya. Very nice job, by the way. All right, in 2nd place, in the global block, Coach Dan Medeiros. We have Shane, Nate, and Sophie. Please come on up. The moment we've been waiting for.
So as I congratulate my team here for a great job with the presentation. I will say, if you come back for launch next year, or if you have friends that are gonna come in, I think what you should do, at least for the Milwaukee Tool strand, is have a first-time coach. Because last year a first-time coach won, and this year another first-time coach won. First prize goes to Johnny Chen, Liam Lawson, Max Rush, and Pratik Ankumar, Coach Zoltan College. And, as Adam said, just because you're not in the top 3, you guys are all winners. You guys did an excellent job. The presentations were awesome. I know internally we'll be able to digest and look at all the output that you guys provided because it's really, really cool. Some great ideas there.
One thing I'll say about our first place winners, the go-kart is cool. But one thing to think about with all of these challenges is there's a lot that goes into this. Based on the challenge, how you approach it, how you apply your people, your culture, your skills. It's not always about the cool product, it's about how you get to the end result in your product. So we do have, for our first place winners, some prizes. Some of our great, by the way, I love these things, Milwaukee Tool caps and tumblers. Because hydration and keeping the sun out of your eyes is important per Dan Medeiros. So I think one last final round of applause for everyone here today. lineup of people that want to take that go-kart for a ride, by the way, too. Hopefully that's outside. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of the challenge, and we hope to see some of you next year, and we'll enjoy watching all of you grow in your futures. Thank you.